The following podcast is sponsored by Basico. At Basico, we understand your needs and pain points. Our expertise in CFO services, legal, finance IT, and people and payroll helps drive your business forward by inspiring change and challenging norms. We believe in deep explorative discussions and critical angles, the same spirit that fuels the Only Constant podcast hosted by our own Lasse Rindom. Discover more about Basico's vision and services at basico.dk. And if you like what you hear in this episode, please don't hesitate to share it with a friend. And now Lasse, take it away.
You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Laura Jeffords Greenberg, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi Laura, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm super happy you're here, and I think this is going to be a really fun and engaging conversation. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited too.
So Laura, we just spoke about this, right? That you're an American. You actually grew up in Silicon Valley, right?
I did, in San Jose, so South Bay.
So you grew up as a techie, or?
I grew up with it around. So during the first bubble. So we have family friends that were Yahoo employees, like number 10 and 11.
Oh.
Never had to work again.
Oh, that's nice.
He races Porsches and she buys horses.
Great occupation.
Yeah.
Why did you miss out here? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, wasn't part of that boom, but I do remember I took a economics course in high school, and I remember the teacher saying, like, this is absolutely unprecedented. Like what is happening right now in the bubble before it burst. And he was like, I don't know how to explain this to you, but this is not normal.
with the .com bubble.
Yeah. And then I also had to have a technology class where we were tested on like, who is Steve Jobs? Who is Steve Wozniak? Who are the gods of Silicon Valley, that started it, and had to code as well. So I built my own website in HTML in high school.
That's nice. Very early on.
Yeah.
So you're very early digital or tech adopter or digital native, or?
I don't know digital native because technically I'm Oregon Trail generation. So I grew up without technology, but it probably came in elementary, middle school, and I just remember my dad bringing home various, computers. Yeah.
I think we're the same generation, so I grew up the same way. But it became a thing that I quickly adapted to. It became something that I grew into. You grew into technology.
Yes,
the last generation who had this, the first 10 years of my life was without technology. I had a remote control, right? And okay, you had a Commodore or something like that, maybe, right, to play computer games.
Yeah.
Did you have that?
No, it was Apple's.
You
like the first one, I brought home the little Apple box.
Macintosh.
Yeah.
Right, they were called Macintosh, right?
Macintosh.
You didn't say Apple back then. Macintosh with the Apple on it.
But with the like rainbow apple.
Yeah, exactly. I read the little logo, right?
Yeah.
But also now you live in Europe. So are you even able to speak English anymore?
I don't think so. No. It is deteriorated, I think, because I've lived in Austria, and now we live in Denmark.
Deutsch?
Not well.
Okay.
I had to. But now I think it's just about being understood. So a lot of times we're having a conversation like you and I, and then they're like, I don't speak English. And I'm like, we're having a conversation and I understand you and you understand me. You speak English.
Yeah. But that also means that you are taking your English level down a bit, doesn't it? Or how does it affect your English level?
Definitely. And there are times where things come out of my mouth and it is what a non-native speaker would say, just because that's what I'm around. And I'm like, that is not proper English, but you just adapt to your surroundings.
Yeah, so that becomes the worst of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But is that the same thing? I just thought, I thought a lot about that with my... I've thought a lot about that with my own writing on LinkedIn and in general in English and also in Danish. But when you have these language models available, because you also sort of adapt to their voice, right?
Yes.
So is it the same? Are we losing the exceptional writing, or are we gaining better writing from everyone?
I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
Because
everyone writes better, right?
But in the same style. Do we want that style? Do we want all the M dashes? Do we, there's a formula.
I can tell you that on average, we have wanted that.
Okay.
Because that's how the models work, right?
Yes.
So on average, this is how we would have wanted in past tense. Very precise.
No, but I do think like we're going to lose unique voices or unique writing styles. Because we're just used to, I can already see my writing styles changing just because of what I'm reading.
Yeah, exactly. That's also, my fear is actually the same, that okay, I still write all my own things, that I'm worried that people will think I'm doing it with AI, because I have AI in my title, so people are like, okay, of course an AI elite is using AI, right? But also I'm worried that how am I being affected by things I'm reading? That, I used to be good at these. It is not A, it is also B, this typical argument style that AI, for some weird reason, really, really loves. Loves. Like, this podcast is not just fun, it is also informative, right? Okay,
yes.
That's done all the time. And so I've sort of unlearned to do that, because now it will make me sound like an AI. But at the same time, some of the other phrasing and some of the other way of doing an argument, saying, so what are we actually doing, and then pausing. And then I didn't necessarily do that before. Maybe I was more assertive in my writing before, like more bam, bam, bam. Yeah. But now I'm more like narrating it, because AI is always narrating the answer, the post. To get and I'm at a loss because I have to go back and look at my old writing to figure out, have I changed? And
I think there's an interesting example of when I worked at Red Bull in Austria. So I was the only native English speaker in a large legal team. And over the 2 years, I had a British colleague that also spoke German, but wasn't with us. And she said she saw my writing, I guess, devolve, my English writing devolve into what a non-native English speaker would write. So I started to adapt the way that the native German speakers were speaking English. So I evolved subconsciously. I had no idea that I was doing this at the time. I was just communicating.
This just adds so many interesting perspectives on how we're using AI right now, because it's a language machine. Yes, that we've never had before. And I know we don't necessarily think in language. I actually discussed this on last episode with Sune, that he was deaf for the first 5 years of his life, so he didn't actually think in language until very late. So you definitely do not think in language, but language is the primary expression form for language, right? Yes. So what is it doing to us? I think that's just so interesting.
I think that is fascinating, and how it evolves and changes.
Yeah. And can it change with us, or can we change? Anyway, but that's not actually the reason why we're here right now. Also, we are here to discuss AI and everything, but I want to discuss with you a little bit about lawyers, because you train lawyers. So Laura, why does everyone in technology and everyone of your old school friends, I would say, primarily, right? Why do they keep thinking that lawyers will be out of a job in a few years? Because I think has been coming a lot from big tech providers in Silicon Valley.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just always want to say I'm a lawyer. So I'm a California licensed lawyer, so I feel I can talk about
It's you they're so annoyed at.
Yeah, exactly. So I can talk freely about that. But I think there's a couple different reasons why people think lawyers will be out of a job. First is that it makes sense, right? When ChatGPT first came out about 3 years ago, I was like, this is amazing. It's natural language. These are large language models. It works in language. I'm a lawyer. I work in language. This has to solve all of my problems. Like, we have to figure out how to use this technology for us. Like, this is the only thing that is going to change how I work. So I've worked in technology, and we had VR, cryptocurrency, machine learning, and AI a little bit when I was doing that. None of those things was going to change how I was going to work as a lawyer. But large language models, I think, will. So one, there's this idea that conceptually it should put us out of a job, right? If
because you just said, it can solve all of my problems, but all of your problems, that's your job.
yeah, exactly. Maybe I don't want to be a lawyer. And I'm just like, let's just get rid of this. So I think that's conceptually, it seems to make sense, right? If you're just thinking about it, that it should help us. But then I think people don't fully understand what lawyers do. And there's a lot of manual work that lawyers don't need to be doing, right? If you go back to just how we train lawyers and you're going through doc review and trying to find pieces of information in documents, originally you started with actual physical documents in a room, right? If you're old.
Yeah.
Going through with highlighters, and then it moved to technology and you are using software. But now you could just use AI to do that, to sort of find the needle in the haystack and process it and summarize it. So we don't need like that training, and then that part of the job of a junior lawyer is gone. I don't think that's enhanced my being a lawyer, like doing some of those manual tasks.
But maybe it's taught you to read law.
I mean, the U.S. discovery is awful. And so I don't think that did, but writing, going through and looking at the pieces of information and analyzing it myself and then organizing them and figuring out the arguments.
But we just spoke about that. When you read language, you learn language.
Oh, yes.
We just spoke about that, actually.
But because you're not really reading, you're looking for information.
But
I mean,
you start
are reading
talking
through
this, including but not limited to, like,
yes.
ways of you get my point?
Yes, no, I do get your point.
So you start almost going back to your husband being like, oh, I will do the dishes, including but not limited to.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, I guess you have that in law school. But there are certain manual things I think that we don't need to do. Like, can we focus more on, even though AI can help us with analysis, how can we have AI help us with that analysis and help us get like a first draft or help us with editing and sort of the judgment and strategic pieces and not necessarily some of the manual work?
So I have two questions, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I want to take the first one first. Is that if you simplify something like that, all the manual stuff, I would say that in coding definitely, and many other places as well. That when we fix these, you don't have to write code that way as well. And then we can build more complex stuff. We can just do more.
Yes.
So the websites we built in the 90s were very simple and very difficult to build back then.
Yes.
But then they became very simple to build with low code, no code, and now with AI, it's like if you want to build a 90s website, it takes 2 seconds for an AI to do it, and like literally 2 seconds, because it's so easy to do. But then we'll start asking for more complex stuff, right? That's the reason why Google keeps on eating more RAM, right? Because the websites are amazingly complex and big right now, Yeah. And it's the same thing going to happen here. So everyone thinks we're going to get rid of lawyers, as I said, but are we going to get more? I
don't think we'll get rid of lawyers, but I think it will change the profession.
So bigger, the EU and everyone is making larger regulations now.
There are so many regulations. Yes. So
is that the big dream? Let's have AI so we can make more complex contracts in law?
Well, if you're a law firm lawyer, probably. I think you have to divide. I was thinking about this. So the incentives to use AI are different for law firm lawyers or in-house lawyers.
Yeah.
Law firm lawyers, how do they make money?
Yeah.
By the hour. There is no incentive to be more efficient. I was talking to someone yesterday who pointed out, you're a junior lawyer, you get your bonus based on how many hours you bill. Yes. And if I come in and be like, here's an AI tool to help you be more efficient, that means you're going to bill less. That means you're not going to get your bonus.
But I saw that also, I had some companies come out with some AI tools where they're like, we can't see this affecting our time, our hourly prices or our time at our customers. So what did you build then? What does the AI do then if it doesn't,
Yeah, and I've talked to some some lawyers at law firms that only the senior partners are allowed to use AI, and the mid-level and juniors aren't. Because I think they're trying to figure out how the economics work with AI, which in-house it's very different. In-house, you need to be quick. You need to be fast. You're a cost center. You're trying to move your perception from being a cost center to being a strategic partner. And so in-house AI, we have every incentive to use AI to make it easier for our...
But that, you're touching on something that I think is super interesting also on my own side, my own because I'm a consultant, right? And we do digital technology projects as well. And we've started to say that, okay, we need to teach people about, vibe coding or AI assisted coding.
Yeah.
And we need to embrace it and say, yeah, this will make developing your app cheaper. But there's all these, deployment, all these things that are still there. But they also made it possible for us to take some projects on that we maybe couldn't do previously because we were into GSI or something like that. But it's the same thing, right? You have to sort of accept that things have changed that way.
Yes.
And get on that ball.
Yes.
And it just reminds me so much of this whole, the GSI or the big tech firms being, we help you with your AI and set up AI, but we're not lowering our costs on building this and that. Even though everyone knows that, no one's writing. No one. If you're still writing code syntax, letter by letter, then you're just a dinosaur. Right now, you are very much a dinosaur, and you will be out of a job in a couple of years if you do that still. I'm not saying let AI write everything, like write the whole contract, but have it, do small pieces at least, assist you, right? You have to get there to that stage right now, and that will make you more efficient.
And I said yesterday when I was at a presentation that I will not work with a lawyer that hasn't used AI. But that really came down to being curious, right? Yeah. One, I'm curious how the technology works, and then curious how you can work more efficiently.
Yeah.
And I think that we need that in our profession. And again, it's much easier as an in-house lawyer, that's how I identify. Much easier for adoption for in-house than it is, again, for law firms.
But you're also teaching in-houses. That's why you identify as an in-house, right? Because you're not in-house right now. I'm technically, I do some legal work still, but most of my career has been as an in-house lawyer at tech companies. And so I did not last very long in a law firm. I did not like the law firm model. It did not make sense. I was not rewarded for efficiency. And that seemed counterintuitive to me. Like, I'm saving the client money and they're still getting a great product. How come that's not rewarded? Do you want me to sit here longer and make up like more work to do to charge the client? That just didn't align with my values. No, and who you are and your energy. Okay, so juniors are not allowed to use it, you just said.
In some law firms.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And why do you think that is?
There's two reasons, I think, probably. One, we don't know how to train lawyers if we don't have them do the terrible mundane tasks that we were trained on. So
tradition.
We need to think of how are we educating? Can we use AI to educate lawyers? Yes, we can, but we need to think about that. Two is, I guess, second is economics, right? Just maybe the cost of the tool. And then also, again, it goes back to billing, I think.
That's three.
Well, economics both ways, right? Cost of the tool and then billing revenue.
Because I think tradition is really interesting because there's something that's already there. I think, you have to integrate things into what's already there. How do we change the way we've always done it? And if we only train this way, what do we do with these juniors if they're not supposed to sit and flip pages in a contract, right? What?
Yes.
I don't have time to talk to them,
Correct. Yes.
Just give them something to read, and bill it. I don't care, right? Yeah. So that's basically what you're saying. But also, I think also there's this whole knowing what good looks like problem, right? Don't you think so?
Yes.
So if they use AI and they're like, we found, it's all good. Can you trust that if they don't know what good looks like?
That's why, I'm going on 16 years being a licensed attorney. And so I know what good looks like. I know what the answers should be. I know where my limitations are. So AI is perfect for me, I think. I'm getting the most out of it. But what do you do if you're just starting out? Because AI is not going to show you what good looks like in the legal profession. Because it's basically summarizing all of the information and inputs that it has.
And I often fear this spillover from, for instance, an Anglo-Saxon legal tradition when you're working in a Danish legal tradition, and when these things get unclear for an AI, isn't that a problem then? If you're a junior and you get access to these AI tools and it starts commenting on a contract from you're missing. For instance, in Denmark, we have. There's a lot of governing law around employment. So employment contracts are like 2 pages or 1 page sometimes, right? It can be extremely trim. Just say it follows this governing law in the state of Denmark or something.
Yeah.
The
Danish salary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But in the US or in the Anglo-Saxon world, it's like, no, you have to write these 70 pages and promise that you will steal their child if they do whatever or something like that. It's a crazy contract. They're very long and they're very elaborate, and they can put anything there because I don't know. It seems like there's no governing law. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but so my point is just if that AI model started commenting on my Danish, it would say you're missing all of these points because it didn't necessarily connect all the dots, and the vice versa. So if in American junior lawyer used it and it thought, there's a Danish name in the one who's getting hired or something like that. Maybe this is Danish. Oh, it's all covered by this governing law. Isn't that a danger, a risk?
So I teach it sort of as bias. Like the easiest way to tell people is like, where were these tools made? They were created in the US. So one, they're written in just American English. Right, because I also work for a UK company, so they like to add extra letters. And then towards the American legal system and towards American contracts.
Oh, but they were trained on.
Yeah, like that's
data also from elsewhere.
Yes, but the majority of data and the people who are looking at it, and so there's definitely
it's very Western biased.
Yes, it's going to be biased, and then you also have to think, I think, about how much information is out there on the internet in Danish about Danish law. There's going to be less than, let's just say, GDPR. Everyone had something about GDPR. So I'm fairly confident that AI knows about GDPR and can answer those questions. But then if I go over to like a Singaporean banking law, how much information does it know about a Singaporean banking law? So I'm going to be much more skeptical and critical of the Singaporean banking law than the output with GDPR.
And what about some rules in countries that have had regime changes and changes of laws, and it wouldn't be able to at all help?
We're seeing that it's actually, if you direct it to the primary sources, that you actually are getting better results. So, and I've seen it, it's really, I guess, kind of crazy to me that I started using ChatGPT right when it first came out.
Yeah.
And to see the evolution of the answers and responses to now. And then I work for a Wordsmith, which is a legal AI tool. And those responses are even better. So when I first joined about a year ago, I always tell people, honestly, I wasn't 100% certain that a legal AI tool would outperform ChatGPT, Gemini. I was like, I don't know. This seems like a good idea. I like how they're hooking up and integrating with the tech stack that I have. Makes my life easier. But over the past year, the responses are so different because of everything that's being done behind the scenes. So when you have a legal specific tool, it really does produce better results than ChatGPT or Gemini.
But it's sometimes just simple. It's just some very basic scaffolding around these models. So you actually just make basic teams. And you give them grounding information, right? So it's like when you use code assistants. They know that they have to, if you change things here, you have to just look, does that affect things other places? So it's told to look, please look, will this affect something else as well? Simple things, right? So instead of this one-shot AI, bam, just just let's make it a little bit more recursive, right?
And then building on top of it, like for example, the holy grail of AI is reviewing and redlining contracts. And lawyers want magic, like they just want to upload it and be like, here, it's done.
Yeah.
And that is very complex. If you think about everything that you're doing in your brain when you're reading a contract, and all the context and information that's in your brain.
But that's the problem. Like that, back to the thing you say, I wanted to fix all of my problems, but then you don't have a job. And the point, really honest talk, right? Because your job is to review these things.
Yes.
That's why people hired you.
Correct. That is, yes. But there's...
Do lawyers hate their own jobs?
I mean, I wonder that sometimes.
Because I wanted to ask you, why do people in Silicon Valley hate lawyers so much? But now it seems like I have to ask you, why do lawyers hate lawyering so much?
I think it's the annoying things. We like to work on the complex problems.
Yeah.
Like problem solving, strategic, preventative. It's the...
Like reading NDAs.
We never want to, I was going to say, please, for the love of God, can I never read another NDA again? That is something, I'm sorry. And every job I've been in, I've automated NDAs because it's very simple, right? It's a fairly simple document. And then you have a fairly simple list of exceptions that you can handle with different clauses. So like NDAs, like please people don't review NDAs.
But what if someone wrote into it, like if you breach the NDA, we will take your children? But how do you catch that in your automation?
Well, I'm going to think that's probably not going to hold up in court.
No. In the US it would.
Depends what state.
One of the things that I always, on this, all of my problems, your problem as a lawyer is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but your problem as a lawyer or your job as a lawyer is conflict, right?
To prevent conflict, I would say.
And to resolve conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
So both of those things. So conflict.
Yeah, preventing conflict, preventing risk.
Or you could also be more positive, maybe say, okay, maybe it's too aggressive to say conflict, maybe say cooperation.
But there's also this risk element. So that's, I think one of the things that
that's okay, but then what is this risk and opportunity? Maybe it's cooperation, actually.
It is, but it's also like preventative. So I think that's one of the reasons that people don't like lawyers is some of what we do is hard to see the return on investment. You're like, my contract is so good, or I negotiated this so well, or I helped calm down a departing employee that was angry. So I have saved the company a lawsuit, which would have been, I don't know, X number of dollars. That's a hard thing to quantify. So like if you're a good lawyer, especially in-house, you're not going to get to the conflict stage because you're anticipating those risks and you're preventing them. So no one really actually knows whether or not you're adding value. So and like salespeople are crazy.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah, exactly.
It's like invisible.
No one's investing in cybersecurity until it happens, right?
So a salesperson, my best like client who was a salesperson, because again, salespeople are like, will try to get away with anything and are very frustrating to work with for lawyers. But my best salesperson that I worked with, she had been involved in litigation based on a sales contract. And she understood the implications and what could happen if you didn't get it right. And so we had a great partnership because she had that context of, if you don't get it right, this can go really wrong. So,
and that's a point I think I've iterated. I'm reiterating now. I've said before that, if you get rid of the people who've been part of things going wrong, then you also get rid of the people who know what wrong looks like.
Yes.
And they are the ones best suited for saying what is actually good.
And that's
counterintuitive in many cases, right?
But that's also, I think, like when I was working in litigation, so I did employment litigation in California, you learn what can go wrong and how you can deal with it. And I think that makes you a better in-house lawyer. I know the risks. I know what went wrong. Now I'm going to work to prevent those because I've actually seen them. And so I think as we're looking at lawyers and AI, where we do bring in judgment and experience that AI probably can't replicate right now is in those situations.
But maybe AI will know more risks than you do as an individual.
Yes. So one of the things
you can ask it to be extremely risk averse, right?
Yes. And I use AI to, let's say, interpret this clause, give me 4 different interpretations of this clause under California law, and it does better than I do. When AI, if I ask it to play devil's advocate, brainstorm ideas, come up with different interpretations, it always does things that I don't come up with. So it helps me be a better lawyer that way.
And now we've also, just to be sure, we've made clear now that every lawyer is devil's lawyer, right? Devil's advocate. So anyway,
exactly. Yes.
but so it's about risk, right? And that's also maybe that sometimes you want to do things and they come in and say risk, and then you get annoyed. That's why people, that's the annoyance, right?
Yes.
Of lawyers. But will we if we talk about, when people talk about getting rid of lawyers with AI, what is it they want to get rid of? I think we already touched upon it, but I want to be clear now in this context, saying, are we saying we're going to get rid of cooperation, conflict, or risk? Or are we going to get rid of something else when we say we want to get rid? What is it that people in Silicon Valley or elsewhere think they get rid of when they get rid of lawyers?
Well, specifically, having worked at tech companies and thinking about Silicon Valley and worked with CEOs, and if you think of a lot of the tech giants, lawyers stand in the way of what a lot of these tech entrepreneurs and companies want to do. They want to be disruptors. What does that mean? It means that the law is inconvenient for their business model.
That's not the lawyer's problem, is it?
That the law is inconvenient for, well, like the lawyer will point out like, hey, what you want to do is illegal. And then, the startup is like, well, this is my business model and this is what I want to do. I'm willing to test that and push. Like I always use the Uber example of, okay, I don't like the way the law is. So I'm going to push and see what I can do. And I mean, thinking about copyright, if we go in AI and
understood
copyright,
that law is a social construct.
Yes. And I'm maybe powerful enough, or how can I change the law so then I can have the company that I want? So I think lawyers stand in their way. That's how a lot of entrepreneurs will see lawyers, or at least the conflicts that I have been involved in.
Good that no one's doing that on AI copyright issues right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, my point of view is that they're just like, you know what? We don't need copyright anymore. We're just going to get rid of it.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I think that is I'm a historian. I've said that before, but that also means that most historians tend to have a slight conservative leaning. I'm not conservative, but there's this leaning because you believe in incremental change, because you've seen that revolutions are always bloody and messy and end up with more conservatism afterwards. You cut the head off Louis XVI, and then you get Napoleon. He's even more of an autocrat. He cooperates even less with people. So you just get this. That takes a long time, because revolution is just the bloody part, and then you have to still get the old generation to die and all that. So there's this tendency for me to say revolutions are bad. Incremental is the only way to go, and getting rid of copyright law just seems like the most aggressive attack on capitalism ever.
Yes. And so because I was thinking about this earlier, and it goes back to growing up in Silicon Valley. So you think of San Francisco hippies, the summer of love, all of that, where you're thinking of, okay, maybe I don't want property rights. Everything is going to be communal. So you have sort of that aspect, and then you have the tech companies, right, thinking about copyright and property rights, and assuming, my thought is right. They're just like, oh, this is all common.
Like an oligarchical tech communism, right?
Yeah, and they're like, So it got me thinking about okay, what are property rights? Okay, like property rights, and I want to own my house.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't want someone to come in and just take my house. And then, okay, let's keep looking at rights. And then we looking at, intellectual property, which is copyright.
Oh, but they want to own their own IP,
Yes.
They just don't want anyone else to have it.
Correct. But so I'm trying to merge these ideas of because it also goes back to there was the whole wave of democratizing. I worked for Unity, so democratizing game development. Everyone can be a game developer. Everyone can produce music and distribute it on Spotify. Everyone now could write a book with AI if they want to. So we're democratizing a lot of these things that were held for certain classes of people or people with money. And so what does that future look like, and how does that impact rights? That's something I've been thinking about. I don't know what the answer is.
Oh, please, Laura, come with it. Please. No.
I mean, because you have to think about both sides like a lawyer, right? Yes, I create something and I want to monetize it, and you should get some monetary benefit from something you create. But then I think, let's say Taylor Swift, does she need to have that much money as a creator? She's generating that value. And trying, how do you balance out?
You don't just hate lawyers, you hate Taylor Swift as well.
I don't hate Taylor Swift. I respect her as a businesswoman. I don't love her music.
Okay, you don't have to. That's just your hippie genes talking there.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we went, the CEO of Lovable and I can never say that, Synesthesia, we're having a discussion, and the idea that AI is going to wipe out all these jobs, and then we're going to have to give people jobs to do things, which will probably be more in the arts and people skills. And so are we going to is the society going to completely transform? And with that, do we get rid of
but we always
copyright?
I'm so annoyed at this discussion because personally I'm like, and it is very personal, of course, but we always say like, then we get more free time and we care more. And who needs a new BMW? You need a new BMW because your neighbor just bought it.
Yes.
So you want more. You want to earn more. You don't just want to chill around doing art. You want to find a way to make more money and get more power in this system that will be AI enabled. So that's why we keep producing more outcome. We make more complexities because everyone wants more.
Well, that's what people are saying with all these past, technical revolutions, right? Email will help us be, more productive, and it'll have less work, or right. And we're seeing AI might give us more work. So I was talking to someone who used to work at Microsoft, and they had to do a lot of reports. And with AI, you can do reports much more quickly. And then so they thought, I'll have more time to do more work. No, they have to do more reports.
And read more reports.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also why the thing is we need to make sure that we're producing more outcome, not just producing more. The personal productivity, you need personal efficiency.
Yes.
It's a different thing.
Yes, it is. Being efficient.
Yeah. Doing things that make sense to do, not just doing things, right?
Just producing reports to produce reports.
Yeah. We can do that all day.
Yes.
And do podcast all day.
Yes, that is true.
Just to switch gear onto something else, it's legal language, right, and contracts. Because I've been thinking a lot about this with code, where it's formal language. So there's no extra-verbal, there's no non-verbal, there's no hidden connotations in code. It's just structured language, and these LLMs are like absolutely amazing at that. But legal language, does it have really, you said it's good at it, but does it really have the same low level of ambiguity? Is it really non-verbal, non-verbal, non-extra-verbal, non-hidden connotations?
No. I mean, so with code, I like to think of it as like, if you have a right or wrong answer. Yeah. Something works or doesn't.
Most of the time.
Right. I mean, okay. Yeah.
yeah, but it's true.
Oversimplification.
Why does this work? I don't know. Don't touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a joke, right?
Yeah.
But
right, like you will get feedback about something working or not. In law, you don't have that software or hardware or whatever you're talking to. You have people and they're subjective. And we're interpreting it. So you don't know in your contract, what you've agreed to with the other side. If you go through litigation, how is a judge going to look at that and read that? There is no right or wrong.
No judge test.
Yeah. And there are some people trying to move towards making legal language more common. Or can we all agree to certain standards? Of course, those are people who are more coming from the in-house world. They want to be more effective, want to be more efficient. For NDAs, there's a movement called One NDA, where everyone that agrees to use the same NDA, and there's only a couple pieces that you change.
You really hate NDAs, that's right.
Yes. And then also there's people that are trying to create standard terms for MSAs or SaaS products. So then it's a lot of the time this negotiation is over the same exact issues. Right. So let's just get let's just get the structure in place. We can agree on some main things. And then here are the 5 things that we're going to discuss. And so then that's also moving towards AI, where the idea where you have AI negotiating contracts, it would be the same thing as like, we've all agreed to these terms. These are the 5 things where we're having an issue. And then you would go and look at each side's fallbacks, and they would compare what their fallback positions were. And then they'd negotiate the agreement.
But isn't this like a hive mind dream? Because I'm back to, are we getting rid of the cooperation, conflict, and risk problems? Because we all agree that we're going to, it sounds like there's no conflict here. Because everyone agrees to use the same AI setup to move back and forth between each other, right?
Yeah, but then there would always be issues. There's always going to be issues that then need to be escalated to a human to make a decision on.
But that's my point, right? It seems like we're dreaming of a world without conflict. We're annoyed at the conflict. We're annoyed at the risk side, right? We're annoyed at that we have to cooperate. So we're dreaming of worlds where what if we removed it all? Yeah, I get that, right? Yeah. Yes, that would be great,
But it's not.
All you need is love, right?
Yeah.
But you can't just have that.
sorry, right?
No, it would be impossible to like get rid of lawyers completely.
The most beautiful thing is that there's so much antagonism in the world, and at the same time we live in the same cities, and to some extent, right, we actually cooperate on large scale, but so much stress and antagonism just below the surface level, right?
Yes.
All the time things are like friction, right? So we don't get rid of that. It's part of the construct of humanity, isn't it?
Yes, I think so.
So what is the dream here?
The dream is to not do the terrible, annoying work that you can outsource to software. So like I was back in 2018-ish, I joined Unity as the first lawyer to support full-time the R&D team. And I'm like, okay, you're at a huge technology company.
Mm-hmm.
And our general counsel was like, okay, I want your dream, your wish lists. What do you want to make your job easier? And I was like, I want an engineer. Like, give me an engineer who can help me solve these problems. I have these workflows I need to integrate. My clients are working.
And that's how you met your husband. Oh, no.
Yes, no.
I want an engineer.
Yeah, I want an engineer. They all thought I was nuts. And I was relatively new. And I remember being like horrified, not being completely confident in myself. Being like, but I thought this was like a great idea, like a no-brainer. Like, I don't understand how they don't see how this makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need our systems to talk to one another. I can't get Jira to talk to Slack or talk. Like, I can't do that. I don't have those skills, but I know someone does. We work at a company.
So you're talking about, because what you spoke about a couple of things here. You spoke about the whole thing about removing some of the conflict between different entities, like in a standard NDA for everything, or making contract procurement process could also be made easier. There's a lot of things that could be made easier if you knew the counterpart, and the counterpart used an AI that actually wanted to speak the same language. We could make this leaner, right? Remove the conflict. Maybe that's a pipe dream, right? But at the same time, you also said that we don't know the counterpart. That's the problem with legal, right? I asked you about the non-verbal, the extra verbalities and all, and the hidden connotations. But we can't know because there's, and maybe the problem is that we legal people say that we have high precision in our language. There's high precision in what we're producing. We want high precision, but I'm asking, what does the bullseye look like? And you have no clue.
I guess it's
because it's always a counterpart, or it's always a judge, or it's always a law is sort of supposed to tell you this is kind of this might be,
you're making your best guess.
This is how the bullseye thing could look like, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're trying to minimize risk and optimize. Yeah. So that's where human judgment comes in, and where it's hard to get AI to get it right. Because going back to, are there underlying, when I say, I'm trying to think of like a term. There are terms of art in law, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, that are fully loaded. Meaning that there is, especially in the UK and the US, there's case law behind this term, like best efforts. And there was some term that I always accepted in UK agreements. That's like best efforts.
In the US, you have something with natural law as well, don't you?
No.
Well, like, this is my natural right as a human being, or something that can be discussed forever, right?
Oh, there's moral rights and intellectual property in Europe, but we don't have in the US. Yeah. But so there are concepts that, and like magic words, right? Like combinations of words that have so much meaning. And so as a US lawyer, I was negotiating UK contracts, and the UK lawyers would just want to kind of change. It was some best efforts language. I should probably remember what it is. And I'd always accept it because I was like, it's sort of like best efforts. It's just phrased a different way, whatever. And then like 12 years into practicing, I realized that term that I had accepted in UK contracts actually is fully loaded and has all of this case law behind it. And I had no idea. Because I just didn't have that context of being a UK lawyer.
They always have that. They always have these. Yeah, but that phrasing has been, judged in this way and that way, right?
But in the UK is different than in the US.
Yeah, a judge has said this means this here, but it doesn't mean this here, and then Yeah.
So you have that coupled with then the subjectivity of whoever's interpreting.
So a rose would not smell as sweet were it not called rose. It actually means something what it's called. That's the Shakespeare quote.
Yes, yeah,
exactly. So it actually means something what you call things in legal.
Yes.
Yes.
And in different jurisdictions, different countries, it will mean different things.
So I see you saying also two things, that internally we can speed up our, the Jira, the Slack, all that. You can speed up all these things. That's cool. I get that. Because you have, that's sort of like, if now I might sound IT autistic or something like that, because I say, I think of it as endpoint some things. You want to connect things?
Yes.
Let's call that endpoint. So you have an unclear endpoint on one side, at least you towards an unclear endpoint, and the other side, the client, the vendor, the authorities, whatever you're trying to make a contract towards, right?
Or even just internally.
But let's say we can fix it internally on the one endpoint side. That's something you can actually control. You can actually streamline that. You can say, this is our opinion, this is our position, this is what we want to do, this is how we say it. We only work on this jurisdiction, we only blah, 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 blah. You can actually speed that up, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, people are hunting to remove. And I would say, if you come to me and say, so we have these two very unclear, undefined endpoints. There are some general phrasings, let's call them laws, that sort of tell a little bit about what is this endpoint all about, but doesn't tell you how the endpoints look. I would say you can integrate that.
Yes.
But then at the same time, that's exactly the pipe dream that these AI tools are dreaming of, to make sure that we can make those endpoints that are unclear, your company versus your contractual partners, clear. Or we can just...
And that's what the lawyers are doing, right?
That's what they're doing. They're trying to do that. But they work in this... They're like working in this, they're actually... The boring stuff that they're doing, the things they hate to do, they're doing it because they're sitting in this frontier, this endpoint frontier to another endpoint, right? But it just sounds like, what you're saying, what we're saying as well, it sounds like we can't automate that because it's unclear. I can't put two things together that are not documented.
Yes, but they're like up until a certain point. So I think there's a whole chunk that you can connect the endpoints on. And then there's going to be a layer that you can't. And then that's where you need the human lawyers to come in.
Can you define those layers?
To get like any lawyer, it depends. It depends what you're doing.
Oh, now you're giving me lawyer crap.
Yes,
Laura.
but it does. It depends what you're doing, right? And what are you negotiating a contract? I don't know. Are you trying to set up a operational process? Are you trying to serve your internal clients? It depends what you're doing. What that, like, we'll call it an ambiguous layer.
Yeah.
Where you can't connect the endpoints, that will change.
But because when I speak to lawyers, they're always like, so you can do, so this is simple, you can always do that. Yes, you can that, but except if...
Yes, it depends, right?
Exactly. And then when you have that, you're always like, so you can say, let's just automate all the NDAs. Great, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, you can do that, but except if, and then we're like...
Well, so the interesting thing about NDAs is that if you have a position in your company, like from your side, you can control automating NDAs. And so let's say you automate 98% of them because you're also thinking about making it easy. I'm thinking about the other endpoint and what the other endpoint will accept. And so in like 98% of the cases, you're automating NDAs, and then there's going to be a couple endpoints that you're not going to be able to connect with because they're just being difficult.
Yeah, but can we know? But if you automate that, you need to make sure that what if something turns up that is also automatable.
And then that's what you escalate to legal.
That's why people end up reading all the time. I always say that with CFOs as well. They get dashboards, they get KPIs and dashboards, right? What's the first thing they do when they get their Power BI dashboard? Oh, this is your new Power BI dashboard. Great. The first 3 years or something or more, they keep saying, show me the data behind it.
Yes. 100%. I have those meetings.
Yeah.
Here's the data. And I have to be prepared to answer all the questions.
Yeah.
What are the questions?
The KPIs are right here. Yeah. But let me just show you the data behind the KPIs.
Yes.
Okay, but why do I make the dashboard then, mister? Right? Yeah. Can we just skip the dashboard creation and just go to the data, right, all the time? Isn't it the same here? So the AI said that you can accept this NDA. Yeah, let me just check.
Well, because there's right now, I guess it's because it is so manual. Right now, if you have someone reading through NDAs, that's not a good use of an in-house lawyer's time, right? So you also have to think about what is my to-do list? And if you're an in-house lawyer, you have a list that is never ending and you're constantly prioritizing it based on risk. So how can I take some of these actions, and if they're low enough risk, depending on your business, I'm comfortable outsourcing that to AI, having something automated. I've set it up. There's enough parameters. Yes, there's going to be a couple exceptions, but they're going to be so few, and I'm going to escalate them. That's how I'm going to deal with them. So you set up a system that will deal with the majority of it. You know some are going to have to be escalated, and then you're going to handle those that are escalated, but then you don't actually have to touch or read 95% of the NDAs.
But I think one of my colleagues is a state authorized accountant or auditor. Som statsrevisor, and he says that he's professionally paranoid. And I think some lawyers are that as well, right?
We have to be. I mean, that's what you're looking at, a contract, and you're thinking, okay, how is this contract going to end? What are all the terrible things that could go wrong? So
if I tell you now, AI can be responsible for everything, but you're always accountable.
Yes.
Would you just be sleeping well knowing that it approved things and set this NDA?
I would have to do it based on risk, right?
And then you still have to look at each and every. My point is just, when do we automate it?
I mean, we've done it with all my companies I've been at with NDAs. Again, I'm comfortable with automating most of those. And there are some companies that say, I'm not looking at anything under 50,000 euros.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? In some of those agreements, there's going to be some scary, risky stuff, but I've got more important things to do, and we're going to take that risk. So part of being a lawyer is accepting risk and then helping the company.
Yeah, and I spoke to a company where he said, but my risk associated with my operations is just so much higher that if it comes to a choice between that operational risk or a GDPR exposure, I'd take the GDPR exposure. I don't care.
Yeah, and you have to look at that. If you are Meta, you need to pay attention to GDPR risk because they're going to come after you, right? Like if you are a small startup that's not making a lot of money.
Yeah, you saw the Anthropic case, right? Where they were fined $1.5 billion or something like that. You saw that, right? But they were like, oh, yeah, too bad. And then next 2 hours later, they raised $23 billion. Doesn't fucking matter.
Sometimes when you talk to CEOs, you're like, okay, if you want to take on this risk, because I've talked to some CEOs that wanted to do some crazy things. How much money do you have set aside for, especially in the US, litigation? If you want to fight this because you don't like this because it's preventing you from doing something, then you need to set aside part of, your fund for litigation. I know large companies do that. It's business-wise, it's going to make more sense for me to take the $1 billion fine than to not do it.
Does law work then?
That's a bigger philosophical.
Because I just remembered, what brought down the Roman Republic. Okay, now I'm taking you far out now. I know this.
But I like to go back in history.
And
so
all Americans love the Roman Empire. I don't know why. I've read somewhere that all American men, of what was it, half of them think about the Roman Empire once a day. Or something like that. Yeah, look up that statistic. It's I don't know if it's half or 1/4, but they all wake up and then what would Caesar do? And I love that fact. So we sold our house. Actually, we sold our house to an American couple, and one of the times they came in, I actually placed my Roman Empire books on the coffee table because I knew they were coming. I thought there are 25% chances he'll be like, "Oh, I can read about Rome in this house."
Buy it.
But he didn't notice. I talked to him after. He didn't know they bought it. He didn't notice. I'm like, but I placed it there for you, just in case.
That's amazing. I love that.
I actually did that, but it's not even a joke. I also thought it was a fun quirk to talk to him about afterwards. Anyway, but in the Roman Republic, the reason why it fell was because people became more powerful than what the Senate could bestow upon them. So Julius Caesar became richer from Gaul than what he could get from the Senate, and he was also richer than the whole Senate. Yes. So they didn't matter to him. He had bigger armies, more money. He could buy anyone in the whole Roman Empire. And does law work when we do that? Or are we bringing about the fall of...
Look what's happening in the US. If you look at Trump being elected, who was at his inauguration? It was all the tech bros who have gazillions of dollars. Why was Elon Musk involved in the US government? I have a very pessimistic view of the US, and also...
That's because you grew up in the other side of San Francisco, right? The hippie side.
grew up in very boring suburban San Jose. But I have worked for a lot of tech companies. I've gotten reported into CEOs, having dinner with VPs that have houses in France that are showing me their giant yachts that they're standing over when they're dry docked. Like, some of these people have ungodly sums of money. I'm like, why are you even working, first of all? If you have this, but they live in a different...
Just race Ferraris, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. That's much more
Buy horses.
Yeah, like just do something that makes you happy. And they're all connected. And I don't want to sound like conspiratorial, but they all are, and they talk. And I've been, involved loosely in negotiations, or you've seen like the inner workings of that machine, and they make so much money, and you can see.
But this could make me think, if I was a lawyer, that I hate my job as well. Okay, I'm doing all this law stuff, and then they're like, okay, whatever, 1.5 billion, let me raise more money.
Yes, you could, but I think a lot of us went into law to try to make, with the naive dream of making the world a better place or believing in justice. And it wasn't up until recently where you could see how democracy can be eroded rather quickly. Although one would argue that, let's say, the Republicans in the U.S. have been planning this for quite a long time. If you go back and look.
Now put this tinfoil hat aside, Laura. But joking.
Yeah.
No, but the point is still right. What do we need to do to ensure that this? Do we have to make more power into our legislation? Do we need more legislation?
Well, one of the frustrating things about, like, if you just look at tech legislation, and oh my God, when I was in New York and I worked at a VR startup when VR was going to change the world, we went down to DC to talk to some of the representatives who were on like the XR VR committee, and you were just like, oh my God, you have no idea what is happening. Same thing, like you look at GDPR and like actually practically implementing it, or the EUA Act, the people that are making the laws don't understand technology and how it works and the implications. I understand my right to privacy, but all of the cookie banners on every website, is that like helping anything?
Yeah, but that's one thing. But also the fines. Why not say you can't operate here for 2 years? Why not go batshit crazy? Close. We're still bigger, right? The community is still bigger than the companies for now, right? I'm just thinking, maybe make it so that there's bounty in adhering to rules and not just challenging rules and seeing if you're big enough to. Too big to fail, and then change the rules. That's what they're betting at, right? And they don't. I just think that there's something here we need to work on very, very carefully and think, this is a big fine. Yeah, no, it's not a big fine if you're that big.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just the cost of doing business.
$1.5 billion. Yeah, it took some rounds, right, for this copyright thing. But Nvidia is worth what?
It's ungodly sums of money that it is.
5,000 billion or something? Right?
Yeah, and it's just. So then that just becomes the cost of doing business.
It's not even that. They don't even care. It's not even in the books, right? It's like an expense, right? It took cap. You paid $1.5 billion for some copyright, for some authors. Tedious, trivial. But it becomes one of your NDAs, right? Or just process it.
Exactly. It does. And so, it is an interesting question. So what do you do?
So the public interest becomes a side note. Oh, anyway, that's an...
But then they're like, when they tried to, let's say, when you try to ban TikTok in the US, and you think about how many people depend on that for their business.
I remember that.
And like, would people be in an uproar? Like, I don't care about these companies. I just want the convenience of Amazon or my connectivity on TikTok or Facebook. Right? This is part of my life and part of who I am.
That's but we get used to things. We live lives where we engage in it, right? It becomes. I always emphasize that, right? That we sort of people live in these things and adapt to it, and we have to see what are they adapting. There's a world out there that will change. The integration thing, the whole thing, right? That's also why it's the move fast and break things is not really how you want the world to necessarily work, right? I think stability, right, in the end is what builds society. oh, that's where my historian conservatism comes in, right? But really, most people were like, it's okay with the king. Back then, he's an autocrat. Oh, he killed some people every now and then, but it's mostly stable.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you come... Like,
if it's not stable, then you have a problem, right?
Yeah, because, I think we started seeing that.
Yeah.
Seeing that play out slowly a little bit right now, and then people closing in, and, you worry about yourself and your family first, rather than looking at larger society when it's not stable.
Everyone wants better, yeah, but they want stable first and foremost. They want no violence. They want, a house, and they want to mind their own business. They want to worry about where they're going on vacation next year, not necessarily worrying about whether there'll be a vacation next year or something like that. You want to be just, that's what, and that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out in the future as well. If they will give us this illusion of everything stable.
Yes, I'm hopeful.
Fearful, maybe. That it's also really weird, because it makes liberal tradition. I'm a liberal and I believe in liberal traditions. But what if liberal traditions were better handled by an AI or a tech company? And what if my stable, comfortable life were better handled by an AI? Would I still be liberal? That's like the worst question in the world.
Well, that's what, depending on what you read and what you believe, that's what some of, the technology CEOs think, that, I know what's better. I've built these successful companies. I know what people want. I would be better placed to run the country than someone who's democratically
elected.
Succeed?
That's the thing. What about the liberal tradition then? But those questions, right? That's some very deep questions and some other kind of questions. But I want, what are actually some of the most surprising questions you get? Because you're training legal professions, so going back all the way back to them again, right?
Yes, yeah.
What are some of the most surprising questions you get when you're training these people in AI?
One of the first things I did when I first started training lawyers was asking them how they feel about AI, to just figure out the temperature in the room, right?
So you sat in a circle and you were like, hey, I'm a hippie from...
Yeah, exactly. Let me make you talk about your feelings, things that lawyers love.
Yes. What do you feel the contract is about?
Yes, exactly. Now do an interpretive dance.
Yes, of the contract.
Yes, exactly.
How does this NDA look if it was a fruit?
Yes.
What fruit is it?
Yes. Because there's no right or wrong answer, right? Lawyers want to get things right. So like, if I ask you about your feeling, I want all your feelings, good and bad.
While they can't define what's right at the same time, as we said, precision. They want to get it right, but okay.
But in here, I'm telling them there's no right answer. Like I'm trying to figure out who am I dealing with in this room? Is it people who like AI? Is it people who don't like AI? And then if you don't like AI, why don't you like AI? And so that was really interesting about the different fears. And different fears would come up. I mean, they're the obvious ones of like, I'm fearing that's going to replace my job. For some of the older people, I'm fearing that I won't be able to keep up in the later part of my career and I'm going to become obsolete. Then there were some also surprising ones where they were just fear of using it incorrectly or putting in the wrong information, which is something that you can fix. But I think there's an emotional component to AI that needs to be dealt with when you're training people as well, because there were very strong emotions every single time I've done this. And some were also very positive, right? Like, I love it. It's exciting. It helps me do my job better. I actually can work less and go home and spend more time with my family.
Yeah. So you just start off with these emotional discussions with them.
You did to get it. And then now it's more, because lawyers have been doing a really good job at using AI. So now it's, okay, what has your experience with AI been? But again,
that's been intensifying over the last year then, because I think a year and a half ago they were reluctant. Or how is that? Yeah,
I guess there's, again, law firm lawyers and in-house lawyers. And I work a lot with in-house lawyers, some law firm lawyers. And so, Copilot has been rolled out, I think, to most people. If not, then you're using Gemini. And most people have tried ChatGPT. So then it's like, okay, what have you liked about it? What have you not liked about it? And then I guess the most surprising thing for me is lawyers work in words. They're communicators. They know how to communicate. They know how to be very precise. They know how to get the answers that they want. But when they sit down in front of AI, I called it AI amnesia. Like I don't know what happens. They like lose that skill set and don't know how to talk to it. And so like for me, I guess also coming from a tech background.
Is that because they think they're speaking to an omnipotent mind or something?
I mean, it could be those emotions. Or I also talked to someone who what she would do is she's like, okay, well, I want it to answer this question and here's all the context. But then I translated it into a very generic question to ask the AI. And then, of course, it gave her a generic answer. And I'm like, no, you have to like take everything out of your head and put it into the tool.
Yes.
That's how you get the information that you want. So I try to tell people to think of it as a person, because then they can maybe communicate better with it if they think of it as a person. Write instructions to a junior lawyer.
That's actually very interesting. I never thought about it. That's right. People then synthesize it into some weird things instead, right?
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on. So
like a ghost in a machine. You're speaking to a ghost.
Yeah.
And, if we do Ouija board, although, no, not the Ouija board, but something like that, speaking to the spirit. I would also ask you, what is my grandpa doing? I will not necessarily be like super specific, right?
Yeah.
How do you speak to a ghost?
I don't speak
but I don't know, how do you speak to something that knows everything? I think that's, but yeah. And maybe that's exactly this, the lack of the grounding. You have to understand that it's not grounded. It doesn't know. It actually doesn't know anything.
Correct. Yeah.
It's just a fluency machine. So you know things, and you have to give it the knowledge it needs.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a fluent engine.
And so one of the things I think that maybe helps me, one is like being a lawyer and knowing how to communicate. And especially in my law school, like I had an appellate advocacy course, which was amazing. But we could only write sentences that had 40 words. And you can only write paragraphs that had 5 sentences. And after every sentence, you had to write how many words? Like go back and handwrite for all your papers and write how many sentences at the end of every paragraph. So you learned how to be extremely concise and very specific. Again, you're arguing at an appellate level. And that stayed with me my whole life. And then when I was at Unity, I embraced asynchronous communication because I was working with most people in San Francisco. You're in Copenhagen, 9-hour time difference. If you don't get your point across, you're then having multiple days of delay, right? Someone just answers no, but you needed more information. You have to wait a whole entire day to get more information. And so embracing that, I think really helped me. These things helped me be a really good communicator. So then when I sat down in front of AI, I just would be like, context dump, stream of consciousness. How would I give instructions to my colleague who's on the other side of the world? And I had to give them documents as well, right? Here's all the documents. Like, here's what I want you to do very briefly, either in Slack or an email. And then here's all my supporting documentation in case you have more questions. So sort of thinking like that, I think helps with writing and talking to AI.
It's funny with the asynchronous because that's another perspective on also the legal tradition, right? And I just thought about this, back when they had the peace treaty for the Independence War in the US, right? They had to agree in Paris, but they were fighting a battle. They agreed the peace treaty, and they were still fighting a battle in the US after it had been signed because no one could communicate it back to the US. Yeah. It took 5 weeks.
On a ship, yeah.
And so also, if you had to communicate that, what if they came back with a red line this, and there's mark up here, please change this. Then you could go 10 weeks. Just imagine the precision needed, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think that what I sometimes do is make sure that people understand that this machine is not in the room. So asking it very directly, what do you want to do? And then it's like, nah, I just want to do whatever you want to do. Yeah, but what do you want to do? Nah, I'm just here to hang out. Maybe let's speak about some of the things you always speak about, Lasse. And then he mentions a couple of things and whatever you just want to talk about. I'm here. So no, but what do you like? But it's like this Eddie. I made the comic with the Eddie Murphy where he's dancing. Remember Coming to America? His first wife. She's like, "What music do you like? Whatever music you like." And she keeps on going like that, And it feels that way, and then make people aware that this model, this thing, does not exist. It's not here. It's not in the room.
Yes.
Because then they will be like, okay, I have to give it everything.
So I use AI a lot with my kids just to answer questions. Like my daughter's like, I want a tarantula. And I was like, all right, well, let's have AI, ChatGPT voice conversation about how long they live, what do they eat, blah, blah, blah. And then I told her that it was ChatGPT's birthday. And she's like, oh, I want to know what present it wants. And so she's like, let me talk to A. I'm like, it's not a person, you know? And so she kept trying to say, what do you want as a present?
And it doesn't want it.
It doesn't want it.
I just want to hang out with you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for recognizing my birthday. I really appreciate it. But, you know, that's enough.
You failed, ChatGPT. You can't be a friend like that. Tell me what you want, you know.
And I know, like, they've done also studies, like with Alexa, where smaller children think that Alexa is a family member.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're having conversations with it. So it is interesting. Like, is it a human? Is it not? How
do we explain if it's not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I also wanted to say something to that. I can't remember what it. No, don't say sorry, because but the kids wanting to, you know, ask it about things. I just think it's. Yeah, I think it's super interesting that it doesn't hold anything and make people aware of that, because language gives this impression, this illusion,
yes,
that it's a friend, that is human-like. It doesn't tell you, as Sarge Belongi said, it doesn't tell you in a robot voice, I am just a robot, I don't want anything for my birthday. It doesn't do that, right? It just...
And they put in us, and they have intonation, right? All the voices, and you pick the voice that you like.
To make sure it sounds like a human, right? Because they make money from that.
Yeah, because it's quite pleasant, and I'm doing work that way with voice a lot more while I'm doing other things.
That's also what I do. I take it up, and then in voice mode I ask, so what do you want to do? Just to make people, it's not here, okay? You need to ground it.
That's a great, I like that.
And people are like, oh yeah, okay, they see the absurdity, and it's not here.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
Well, I try to tell them, like, imagine if it was a junior person that just joined your company. So you know a little bit about law, they know a little bit about your company, but they don't. You have to give them the background.
You have to be more direct. This exercise is actually very good. You can take that.
I think I will. Yeah,
it really because
it drives it home,
and it's very, very quick. You can do it in like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then like, well, okay, yeah. And also the other joke. So one of my favorite memes. I think I mentioned it in the conversation with Suna as well. Is that my favorite meme of last call is that this is your AI girlfriend, and then she's like a really hot woman somewhere on a beach, something like that, right? Mm. And this is your AI girlfriend without makeup, and then it's a server stack.
Yes.
Just to be very clear, guys,
yes.
This is the one you're falling in love with, okay?
Well, I think there was, I saw, it was in the US, there, a guy with ChatGPT had a relationship with ChatGPT, but then he hit the wall with the data or something, and then it just wiped his whole entire account. Because he was spending so much time, so it like reset it, and everything that it had learned about him.
No, but I think it happened 2 days ago, 3, 4 maybe, I don't remember. Last week that I asked it something, and they ChatGPT updated the memory function. This just makes it very clear this is a machine, right? And this is of course banal to point out to you, but it is a machine. So I asked it something, and then it said, yes, I will just draft that up for you, or something like that. And I'll also give you the Turkish translation like you prefer. I'm like, what? And then it just started Turkish, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't speak Turkish. It's called the word, or something. I don't speak Turkish at all. I said, I love you, and you're a donkey, son of a donkey. That's anyway, but... I don't speak Turkish, so I was like, why? I asked it, why on earth did you get the idea that I want everything translated into Turkish? And I said, oh, you said that, and then gave me the date a year ago that translated everything from Turkish into Danish and from Danish into Turkish. And there must have been me in a conversation with some Turkish persons demonstrating that ChatGPT could be this translator. But then it has just taken that, it just run through all of my previous conversations and said, this is a rule. And just like, guys, can you please stop messing with my memory?
Yeah.
My assistant, because now it's Turkishing me up. Right?
And so that's interesting. Going back to legal and AI, when you have a legal AI tool, how much memory do you want it to have? You want it to remember certain things about your company, but then like that, you don't want it to pick some random rule out.
No.
And then overemphasize that.
I've added that thing you had for this job over here, and I've added that to the general terms for all your employees. Yeah. Don't you want? No, please don't do that. You know. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's sometimes also when they update models, they also update the training and you update the functions, and then suddenly that's something just rolled out.
I don't know if you experience this, but I feel like every time they update the model, there's more hallucinations in the beginning, and then it kind of like evens out. I feel like there's always this kind of like weird period where like it gets worse.
The testing things.
Yeah, it gets worse, and then it starts to get better again.
But Laura.
That's there is data that backs up that like the letter of your first name matches your profession.
I just called you lawyer.
That's fine.
Well, what is in 3 years? What is the job of junior lawyers or paralegals in 3 years in an optimistic and a pessimistic scenario?
Well, pessimistic would be there is none, but we don't want that because you need people to
also
grow.
Optimistic, right? Because they do all the boring stuff, right?
Well, yeah, but you can't just get rid of all the lawyers. You're going to need some.
Well, just the juniors and the paralegals.
Yeah, but they need
get rid of those, right?
Yeah, but you got to grow. Like people do have to move through their career. I'm going to die. People are going to have to replace us.
So what are they going to do if they're not flipping pages and reading law learn law language?
I think we were talking about this actually yesterday when I was in Finland. And do we need to go back to more of an apprenticeship model? And then whose responsibility is that? Do we need to change legal education?
For more education?
Well, not more. Well, then you could also go, okay, do we need to completely revamp law schools? Because for me, I had 3 years. I did not like law school. I thought about quitting, but I went to law school in the U.S.
No, you wanted an engineer, right?
Yeah. I actually thought about quitting, but you've already invested so much money in the U.S., right? Because you have to pay for school there. So I was like, well, I'm just going to finish this. Then you're indebted forever to then pay it back off. That's a different story. But a lot of it was all memory based. And also to qualify as a lawyer, it's all based on memorization. But you're never going to serve a client that way. That would be malpractice to be like, I think I remember this law. I'm not going to check if it's been updated, but I'm just going to submit your brief slowly based on my memory. Like, we don't need to do that anymore.
No, but it helps you also get, a sense of navigation.
Yes, it does. But then I think, your analysis and synthesis is more important. And learning that skill and critical thinking. So can you do it?
But can you do that without having read? Oh.
Well, you have to read. But do I really need to memorize everything?
Yeah.
Because that's not how I practice. I will go reread something.
But I've actually discussed this earlier. I keep asking this question because I think it's interesting. The more automation we've added in industrial and farming or whatever, then the longer educations we've also introduced as a society. So we take much longer to education. More people take much longer educations today than they did 70 years ago, right? Because we automated more. So is that also going to be the thing? Is that what you're talking about when you're talking to apprentices? You want to just change it? Everyone said, no, we just want to change it. Or do you want to just make it longer?
Not longer. I don't think longer is the answer, but maybe
longer incubation before you become a lawyer.
I mean, when in the U.S. there is no training period. You go to school, you take the bar, and then they're like, "Here, you're a lawyer," and you've never served a client. Hopefully, you've had internships.
You said that now you are a lawyer. You said that earlier. Now I have 16 years. Now I'm a lawyer. Or I know law. You said said something like that, right?
Yeah,
in the beginning.
Yeah, that's how long. Because you measure for whatever reason.
Are you a grown up?
Am I a grown up? I don't think so.
It's the same thing, right?
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
When do I know enough? When am I, old enough to be old, right?
Yeah. But because you measure yourself from for whatever reason, right? This is when I got my license and that's how many years I have. No, I would rethink it. I kind of also think rethink education entirely. What are the skills that my daughter and my son are going to need to work? It's not, memorization is good to learn, but aren't there other ways of learning? Really?
But it Laura, you hated it.
Yes.
You also, but you became who you are.
Yes. And that's probably why I did not work in a law firm.
Yeah, but don't you want your kids to experience that same thing? To become...
No.
Like you are?
No.
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 That's another podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I could have asked, so Laura, what is it you're sad about?
Yeah, exactly. Let's dive into those feelings.
You didn't get that engineer. And sorry, by the way, I just realized now, I assumed the engineer was a male. I'm actually very sorry about that because that was your husband. So I apologize if I said that.
That's okay. That's okay. I also didn't even think about that.
No, I just thought about it now. So the engineer, that would be a man.
That's
that could be
bias.
Your husband. That's a bias.
Yes.
Oh.
Which also, AI is built on
Yeah, and let's forget about that, certainly.
Yeah. Yes.
So Please delete that memory.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yes.
So I will never do that. Never speak about male engineers in Turkish again. So, yes. But Laura, this has been a terrific conversation. I've been really, really happy to have you here. I think it's been fun. It's been engaging. And we've actually gone very deep on a very, very difficult questions. I really, really enjoyed it. So I only have one final question for you. I hope you're ready for that one.
I'm nervous.
You're nervous. That's the way it's supposed to be. Then it works, right? I've been doing this 78 times now, and now you're like, oh, I'm speaking to these 78 ghosts all the time. Everything's ghost now. Everything just ghost, right? Yeah. So just remember that all the other ones are looking forward to hearing exactly what you're saying. So say something smart, right? Okay?
That's a lot of pressure.
Should I add more?
For someone who doesn't speak English well.
Come on. Okay, I don't think that's what the audience will remember from this conversation, to be honest, right? Yeah. Maybe we should have done it in German, then it would have been...
Oh, anyway, Lord.
But Laura.
Yeah, lawyer.
The final question, are you ready for it?
Yes.
So Laura, what is the only constant?
This is really interesting. I love that you asked this, and I love listening to your podcast about people answering it. And I was trying to think about what this is. And for me, I like to go back through history and think about, okay, what has been constant for humans? And what I think is it's that we have this need to interpret and then build a story around external stimuli. And so if you go all the way back to, all the different religions that have been created, and how we've had to give meaning to rain. Like, does rain really have meaning? It's pretty neutral. We now know it's weather, it happens, but people needed to incorporate rain, give it meaning, and incorporate it into their stories. And I went to India earlier this year. I went to the Maha Kumbh Mela, which is the largest gathering of humanity in the world, and it's a big Hindu pilgrimage. And there I also understood Hinduism a lot more. So coming from the Western world, and you have this god of destruction, and you're like, this seems like not great. Or if you look at the Old Testament, it's very violent and vengeful. And you're like, why do I need this? Why do we have this? And going to India and going to this giant gathering of humanity on the plains of the Ganges, I saw things that I've never seen before, right? Poverty at a level that you would never see anywhere else. Diseases and things on people that my father called it medieval. And Hinduism then made so much more sense to me, like how they are interpreting the world, and you have karma, and maybe something bad happens to you, not because of who you are now, but because of something that maybe you did or your family did many generations ago. So we have this need to constantly, at a large level at society, interpret things and give meaning to them. And then we also do that on an individual level as well. And so one of the interesting, sort of on the individual level, is they looked at World War II veterans. Some came back, did extremely well. Others came back, they did not do well. So what was the difference? One of the differences was that the people who did well were able to take the atrocities that they saw and incorporate it into their own story and give it meaning and value and how they help the world. They were part of something better and greater. And the other people just couldn't give meaning to what they saw. It was, too much for them. So I think that's really just something that's constant throughout humanity, is this meaning making out of what is happening in the world.
That's a great constant, and it's also normative, right? That we have to make sure we make meaning out of this AI change or this change in technology that we're experiencing, right?
Definitely.
I thought you would have said risk or something.
I'm not a lawyer at heart, then.
No, you're not. You're more narrative.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I actually really like it, and also it reminds me a lot about the conversation with Nanda, where we spoke a lot about the Hinduism and the dualism. Also spoke about how Hinduism really isn't a religion. Hinduism was invented by the British.
Really?
Yeah, it was just gods in
Yeah, because it is just like deities.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just multiple stories weaved together in an Indian subcontinent, basically. That the British were like, this is too messy, let's call it Hinduism.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
So that's, again, the Western violent dualism at play here, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yes.
Laura, I've loved having you on. This has been great. And thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you. I've loved it. And keep it going.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague.